Hello and welcome to Birth as We Know It. I am your podcast host, Kiona Nessenbaum. I have experienced birth as a doula, a student midwife, and as a mother of 3 amazing children with my husband and high school sweetheart by my side. After attending over 130 births, including my own, I've realized that each birth experience is truly unique. So make sure you subscribe and join me every week as we are guided through many different birth experiences through the lens of the storyteller. Please be aware that some of the stories can be triggering to hear, so feel free to pause, take a breath, and come back and listen whenever you're ready. With that said, let's prep ourselves to dive deep and get detailed about what really happens in the birth space. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for educational purposes only and has no intention of giving or replacing any medical advice. All advice that is given on the podcast is from the personal experiences of the storytellers. All medical or health-related questions should be directed to your licensed provider. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Birth as We Know It podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be interviewing my mother, my bonus mom, my person that is super awesome. I am interviewing Mirla. Mirla, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we are just going to dive right in as usual. And I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about yourself and who is in your family.
Well, my name is Mirla Hampton-Chamale. I have an amazing husband. I have been with him for about 17 years, a very long time. And he had 3 amazing little girls when I met him. And now they're my older daughters with babies. So for five grandbabies, and I'm excited that I get to have grandbabies at my age at 39. So it's a very new experience. And I have 2 of my own. Daniel is 20, and my daughter Anna is 18, about to be 19. So yeah, that's my family.
Yeah, I'm super excited and honored to be a part of your family because I am one of those older daughters with 3 of the 5 grandchildren. But I'm really excited to kind of dive into what it is that you do potentially remember from like your pregnancies and births with Danny and Anna. It's going to be weird calling her Anna, but I'll call her Anna. So let's just go ahead and just start at like conception. Like, were you trying to have kids or were they accidents?
Definitely not trying, but definitely it was very exciting. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so with your first pregnancy with Danny, did you have any really intense symptoms or how was it when you found out? Like, what were your emotions like?
So I was young. I was 18, and 5 months after I got married, it was the surprise that Danny was coming. So we were like, oh my God, so quickly. I feel like I wasn't, my body physically and nutrition wise was not ready for the pregnancy. I got sick a lot with Danny, morning sickness all the time. It was 6 months, 7 months, 8 months still with that. And it wasn't really in the morning with Danny. It was like any time in the day that I felt something smelled funny or I ate something that wasn't right. It was bad. It was bad. Or in the car, I couldn't be in the car for a long drive because my stomach would get nauseous, and it was very challenging. And a lot, for some reasons, just like some bladder infections or urinary tract infections. So I was in bed a lot. And I do remember eating a lot. I would get very hungry. I would get crazy cravings. There was one point that for a few weeks I wanted Whoppers like every day, like the full meal, the fries and the Coke and everything. And I would get so hungry. I did eat large pizza by myself, um, and fruits and everything. I try to eat healthy, but I did eat a lot. I did gain a lot of weight, but all the way to like almost 9 months, still the lightheaded, the stomach nauseous with Danny. So I feel like his was a little more challenging than Anna's pregnancy.
So with that being your first experience with pregnancy, did you kind of along the way, like throughout your pregnancy, kind of compare yourself to like any siblings or your mom maybe about what her pregnancies or your siblings' pregnancies were like?
Yes, definitely. I lived with my sisters, so they were kind of were comparing notes and how they felt a certain way and how I was feeling. Mine was definitely different than theirs as well.
Mm.
So again, that's why I thought it was like me and my body was kind of acting up, that it wasn't, we didn't have the same stories. The crazy cravings, yes, sometimes we did have the cravings like in the middle of the night of fruit or just some weird like pickles or the ice cream stuff. Yeah, that did happen to me, yes.
Nice. Sounds like pregnancy.
Yes.
Did you happen to get diagnosed with anything like through your providers, like preeclampsia or gestational diabetes, or like you said you were nauseous a lot? Did you throw up a lot to the point to where you had like this diagnosis called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is where you're just throwing up all the time? Did you have any of those?
No, I did not get the diagnosis on any of those. It was like a motion sickness,
Mm,
throwing up like when your stomach gets all funny. So I wouldn't move a lot. And I was at home. I didn't have a job, so it was good that I whenever I felt a little nauseous, I would just lay down and just chill for the rest of the day. And again, my sisters were there to help me. One thing that did happen with Danny is my iron and calcium was very low. So
mm,
they did put me on iron pills, and my calcium was low that my tooth started hurting. And
mm,
and that never happened to me before. And I was like, wait, what? And it was just that he was taking that from me. So I was starting to get pain. Um, but that was it. It was just the iron. But they put me on pills, and it was nothing major, nothing big. And then the nauseous, it was just a little motion sickness, but it wasn't like all day every day. It was kind of like once a day, twice a day, every other day kind of thing. But the whole 8 months, so it felt like a lot.
hmm. I imagine that with that kind of morning or motion sickness feeling, you were really hesitant to do anything too much because once you
Yes.
did something, it was just like, oh, and there it is.
And that's what happened. There was this one time that I was washing dishes, and all of a sudden it just came, and dirty, clean dishes. It was just all over. And my big sister just came and she goes, "Just go sit down. Sit down. Don't do anything anymore. Just sit down." Because it was worse for me to
Oh,
help clean. But I'm glad and very happy that I always had their support.
that is awesome. Yeah, I imagine I can see why your siblings would be like, yeah, just it's worse when you help because it's a harder mess to clean up.
Yes, of course.
Oh, that's funny. The further along you got into your pregnancy, did you have any signs or symptoms that showed that your body was preparing for labor?
I mean, the normal feelings that one gets, that okay, it's big enough that now he's not gonna fit in there anymore, and where's the bathroom because the bladder doesn't keep that much water in there anymore. Or the your breasts start to get harder and ready for having the process of the milk and everything. So I started seeing those changes, that it was actually gonna happen, and more and more and more.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because your body is just preparing in that way.
Mhm.
One question that I actually forgot to ask before I started talking about your pregnancies was, did you get a chance or an opportunity to experience a labor and birth prior to your own pregnancy?
Oh, yes. I was in one of my nephew's birth, Jimmy's. I was
Mm,
able to be in that room and see my sister, and I was able to see when he came out, and Jimmy was a big boy. And then I was 17. No, no, 16. I was 16. And at 16, and being in the room, it scared the lights out of me. And I was like, what? Because when he was coming out, then he ripped a good part of my sister's skin. And I was like, wait, what? That actually happens? And seeing her pain and seeing the whole process for hours, it was pretty shocking, very shocking. But I'm glad I got to see that because I had an idea of what labor kind of was.
Yeah, I think that that's awesome that you got to experience a birth at such a young age, also. 16 is a young enough age for it to kind of be a form of birth control because it's scary. But then also, it's an old enough age to kind of understand and connect what's actually happening and going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's really awesome that you had that opportunity. With that being an opportunity, did you feel that seeing Jimmy's birth was helpful or kind of frightening for you as you prepared for your own?
It was both. It was helpful. I had an idea of how everything was gonna kind of go. Um, it was frightening because I had an idea. it was very scary to, I don't know, it's both because it's good not to know and then it's good to know. But I'm glad I was able to experience that because just knowing and having the idea of what was coming prepared me a little bit, which made me a little bit less I mean, I'm still super nervous, still super scared, but just a little bit less that I kind of understood what was going to happen.
Yeah, so seeing the birth of your nephew gave you, like you said, an idea of how much work you were going to have to put in to bring
Oh, yeah.
Danny.
Yes, of course. Definitely.
So outside of that birth experience that you observed, did you at the young age of 18 know about childbirth education classes or did you take any childbirth education?
I did. When I was pregnant with Danny, I think about 6 months and a half, or maybe 6 months, I went to a Lamaze class that kind of helped me have an idea of what was in the room, what one gets to experience, the teaching of breathing and focusing on one thing, and also seeing a birth in the class and hearing other people's experiences of where they were. And it was very, very educational, and I'm really happy I got to do it. And I hope everybody gets to do something like that because it's very scary, and the unknown is so much not to know that everybody should know, at least have an idea of what's to come.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you took advantage of having and taking that Lamaze class, especially at a young age. Because the reason why I keep bringing up your age is because at that age of 18, there's kind of two mindsets that can kind of happen. Oh my gosh, I need to grow up. Let me figure out all the things I need to do. Or, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I'm just going to forget about it and run away and not really pay attention and then just wait till it happens.
Yeah, yes, yes.
I feel like there's not much of an in between, but of course, every birth is different, every pregnancy is different, and there are some very, very, very mature 18-year-olds, and there are some very, very, very immature 18-year-olds. But it sounds like you were on the mature side, which is great.
I tried.
After getting all of that childbirth preparation and everything like that, when was the moment you realized you were in labor or beginning labor with Danny?
With Danny, was around 9, 10 at night that I started having. I already had Braxton Hicks before, so I knew what that was. And the night that I started with the contractions, I was like, okay, this is not it. I know what this is. So it was just started with the back pain and the lower back pain, and it was just hurting front, back, and it was about 10, 11. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I think this is it. And we have, we have some teas and stuff to come down and relax. So she said, go make us some tea, get in the bathtub, relax. And I did that. And as the hours went by, it was getting worse, worse, and worse and worse. So I was like, okay, yes, this is definitely gonna happen. So I think about 12, 12:30, we called, and then they said, yes, you need to come in. So we went to the hospital, and I didn't get to go home after that. They were like, yeah, you're staying. So it was that night, but it was just the horrible back pain and abdominal pain that a women cannot describe until, or don't feel until that moment that we're actually there. That is like, oh, this is not something I've ever experienced before. This is it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense of that, kind of figuring out, thinking like, oh yeah, this is it. And then once you're at the hospital and they're like, oh, you're not going home, you're like, oh, this is really it. Like,
Yeah.
this is like kind of that aha moment of, oh my gosh, I'm about to have a baby.
Yes, and there's no going back.
Yeah, not at all. So do you remember any of the details of getting checked in? Do you remember how dilated you were or anything like that?
I think I was about 5.5, and they just wanted me there. And it took a long time, because again, it started at 10, and Danny was born the next day. Uh, but in that moment, they had me go into the bathtub and just do the hot water and the warm water, and then come out and then walk around the room and then do laps. And then I also did, I sat in the stretch ball that you just kind of relax. And also the bed, obviously at that point nothing is comfortable, and they have you try way different things. So they had me like, okay, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there, and I was just rotating to see what would help. I guess that's what they were trying to do, but it was long.
Yeah, as labor is expected to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, they had you just on this cycle of coping
Mm-hmm.
techniques and things like that. That's awesome. Did you have support with you in the room? Like, did any of your sisters or family come?
I did. I did. At that time, the kid's biological father was there, obviously, and my two sisters were there. But my older sister, Vilma, she gets so scared so quickly, and then she started crying, and that made me more nervous because I was like, this is not helping. My other sister was there, and that time there was no restrictions on who was going to be in the room, and I actually didn't really plan on who I wanted to be in the room, so everybody ended up being in the room. Jimmy was there at a very little age. Diane was there. My two little nieces and nephews. They were just walking around, and I remember being on the bed in pain, and I just seeing the little two kids just going back and forth, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And then my sister in the corner going like, oh, she was feeling for me, but that wasn't helping. And then I see my sister Miriam on the other side, just kind of like being strong, but not really saying much. Good thing I had the midwife, and I had the nurse, and I had people, that medical assistant that knew what to do. And then at one point, when actually they started saying push, I was like, I mean, I know I've heard the word push, but I don't know what that means. And when the contraction came and I had to push, I actually screamed. And they're like, no, you're wasting that contraction. And then the scream I screamed, I've never heard myself scream before or after ever again in my life. It was the scariest scream I've ever screamed. And then after that, I realized, oh, okay, this is what you mean by pushing. My body understood what I needed to do, and then that's it. I kind of went along with that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, to go back to both of the Theas in the room, one is just like breaking down, and one of them is super strong. And I think it's kind of interesting that both of those Theas you're looking to because they both had kids before.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the little babies that are running around in your room during your labor.
Yes.
They're both kind of showing two opposite sides of the spectrum of like, oh my gosh, I remember what this is like, and it's so hard. Oh my gosh. And then the other one is like, oh my God, I remember what this is like. I need a strong person, strong mentality. You've got this. So I think that in itself is just really awesome. But I can also see how it was challenging as a person going through it to just like look at your sister who is bawling her eyes out
Yeah.
and just breaking down. That's kind of hilarious for me to hear, but in the moment, of course, it was very stressful.
It was stressful, confusing because I'm like, aren't you two supposed to know what to do and tell me what to do?
Right, right. And then the aspect of the whole figuring out this, the pushing part, and then having that scream, I think that is so awesome, actually. I think it's beautiful because that is kind of like your body's primal reaction to whatever was going on, you know?
Mm.
Some people would call that like a birth cry or a birth song, because everybody that I know who has given birth talks about how they make faces and sounds that they have never heard or ever made again.
Yep.
Um, and it's just so surprising. So I think that's awesome. That's fantastic. So once you got the hang of the pushing phase, do you remember what it felt like for Danny to like come out, or like did you experience the ring of fire or anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, their biological father was on the left side and supportive and helping with the hand, and my other sister on the right side, and pushing and pushing and pushing, and then I realized I didn't have to scream. I needed to use my contraction, just push down, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is really, it really hurts. It really hurts. This is gonna be it. It's gonna be it. And then it wasn't. And I'm like, what? This is not, it wasn't, because I was like, that really hurt. And I thought that was it. And I had several moments that it was like, this is it. And when I felt the ring of fire, I was like, oh, this is it. I was like, that is definitely what they're talking about. I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does burn. It is fire. It is a crazy experience that you will never experience again. Just that, those moments. And then I realized, oh, okay, so after this, am I done? In my head, I'm like, this is it, right? So after that happened, then it still had to be, I kept pushing and kept pushing, and it did get a little easier, a little better, but yeah, I definitely felt every second of everything. And then when they pulled little Danny and his little shoulders, I got to feel that too, because he was wiggling and kind of, they had to move him and stuff. And it just felt like a little fish, like if you have a little fish swimming in your mouth or like going down your throat, because you still feel every little limb coming out. I felt every little limb coming out. It was just weird but amazing. And when I felt him coming out, it was just so beautiful. And I was just smiling. First of all, smiling because I was done. And then smiling because a beautiful miracle, my baby, it was there. So it was amazing. It was amazing.
I love that. I think the metaphor of a fish like swimming down your throat is interesting, but I can visualize it and try to feel like what that would be like. But I know the actual sensation that you're talking about when a baby is like moving inside your vaginal canal. That is just such, it's odd, but
Hmm.
progressive, and you know that it's almost over
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
that's interesting. So for all partners out there that are listening, just think about a fish swimming down your throat. Yeah. So when you had Danny, was he like put directly onto your chest afterwards? And if so, like how did that feel? What were your emotions at that point?
No, not directly. They had to clean him a little bit. They did things differently at that point there. But then they did. And I had him on my chest, and that is just, oh, that is just one of the most amazing things mothers can ever feel. The newborn is just right there on your chest, just on you, and it's just like this little miracle that you just were part of. And now he's out, and such a connection, such a bond, that it stays forever with, I guess, mothers. They will always stay forever in me. But it was just amazing. It was, and I was like, it's mine. This is mine. This is my baby. Mine. No one else's. And it was just beautiful.
I think that's awesome. I love that because that first moment of having the realization of like, oh my gosh, like this is mine. I made this. I'm a mom. Like
Yes.
the creation of another human being is absolutely like what's the word? Like diabolical. You know, it's insane.
Mine.
The fact, yes, mind blowing. The fact that we can do that. I think it's cool. I think our bodies are awesome.
Yes, amazing.
So with Danny, did you have any struggles with breastfeeding? Did you choose to breastfeed? Did you bottle feed? How was that?
I always wanted to breastfeed. That's something I chose to do since day one. Um, it was a little challenging since it was my first one. Um, he would get tired a lot. He was a lazy baby in the beginning because he would just try to feed and then fall asleep in like 5 minutes. So I had to like wake him up and say, hey, hey, hey. And I had to learn all the tricks that you have to keep him not too warm, make them a little cold, keep talking to them, wake him up and so he can feed again. And then he got to 15 minutes. But he would do 15 minutes and then fall asleep for an hour and a half. And then wake up and do
Mm.
it again. And it was hard because the more they eat, the more they sleep. But he wasn't like that. He would eat a little and sleep a little and then be awake and then do the whole thing all over again. Um, but after a few months, maybe like 2 months or 3 months, he got it more down. He would feed more, and it was amazing. The breastfeeding experience is just it's so beautiful. It's a connection when you have your little one next to you, and he depends on you, and he needs you 100%, and you're the person, and it's like wow, it's such a connection again that it stays with you, and it's so beautiful to see them feed and then sleep and then just grow every day.
Yeah, and I think one of the most awesome parts about breastfeeding or as a parent that decides to breastfeed is when you look down at your baby, even if you're bottle feeding, when you look down at your baby when they're feeding and then you see like how fat they've gotten
Yeah,
because of like your nurturing, it's just like this reassurance of like, oh, I'm doing good, you
yeah,
know?
such a milestone and how big they're doing, and yes, it's amazing to see them grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how long did you breastfeed Danny?
I fed him for a year.
Nice. And so, was that like a choice that you started with, or was it something that you kind of pushed a little further than expected, or was he super demanding and you were like, no, I'm done? How was that transition
Um,
for you?
it was a choice that I wanted to do no less than a year. And after a year, I wanted him to graduate to eat more solids and need me less. Because it's very challenging to do the breastfeeding because it's the middle of the night, and personally, I wanted to do just 1 year, just make sure I did the year, and after that, I wanted him to do the bottle less at night to kind of have him graduate to like eat more during the day and not at night. But yeah, it was my plan to do the 1 year, and I did do it.
I think that's great. And I think that's a really awesome way to look at it too, is just giving yourself a goal and then sticking to that goal in some way. And once you reach it, you're like, okay, I did it. Like now
Yeah.
we can graduate to the next step.
Yes.
So after Danny was all weaned and everything, at what point did you decide, or not necessarily decide, because I don't know if she was unexpected, um, at what point did you find out that you were pregnant again?
Not too long after that, because it was a couple months after. And that's probably what I was like, okay, I did a year, then I should not breastfeed Danny anymore. I mean, I don't even know. I probably could have. I just didn't want to because the in my head, it was like, whoa, I'm pregnant again. The whole right after the breastfeeding and the birth control and all that, and all of a sudden, wait, what? There's another positive, and there's another baby coming. So she was definitely a surprise. Again, but then I started focusing on my nutrition on Marcy, so I wouldn't have as hard as a pregnancy that I had with Danny, and then push Danny to do bottle and eat more solids and stuff like that. But yeah, she was definitely another surprise.
Yeah. So just for the listeners, we might refer to Anna as Marce as well, just because that's what we call her. Marcella is her middle name, but we call her Marce. Her first name is Anna. So whoever out there in the world just decides to listen to this and knows her, you know who we're talking about. So when you found out that you were pregnant with Anna, how was the process on that? You said that you started paying more attention to your nutrition. Is that because you wanted to not feel the same way you felt during your pregnancy with Danny? Or did you start also having similar symptoms?
Definitely because I didn't want to have the same symptoms as Danny. I focused more on eating healthier foods, and eating more my meals that I should be eating. And yes, it was a decision that I made, that I didn't want to have to struggle so much. And actually, I didn't. With Anna, I had morning sickness, but the funny thing is that it was just in the morning, and it was just 3 months. The doctor kept saying, it'll go away in 3 months. And I was like, I hope so. And to the day, 3 months, I stopped with her. It was insane. I looked at the count and I was like, oh my gosh, it's 3 months today. And that's it. I didn't have any more sickness, morning, afternoon, or night. I didn't, not with her. But it was challenging those 3 months. In the morning, I had to open my eyes slowly every morning, sit up slowly, and put my feet down slowly. And I had to grab crackers, and I had to just eat them slowly and then get up. Because if I would just get up like you normally get up, it would be going to the bathroom, and just that was it.
Yeah, that is so interesting that you say that, because the whole process of like the steps you took to prevent your nausea from being too bad in the morning, my best friend does similar things now because she's pregnant and she does similar things now. So it's interesting to hear that, because I haven't personally dealt with morning sickness in that manner. And I hadn't really touched base with many people to the point where they had a system down, or at least we didn't talk about it. So I think that's awesome for you to have, your go-to things. You're like, okay,
yeah,
I'm waking up, I'm getting crackers and starting the day off slow.
Yeah. It worked. They really did work.
That's great. I'm glad that it worked. And I also feel like it probably was somewhat of a relief to realize that at the 3-month mark, it actually stopped.
Yes, it stopped. And I was the one that I went to the doctor with the list of questions, because I had so many questions all the time. And that was one of them, like, okay, what do I do? And I need to prevent this, and this is not happening again. And whenever I went to my regular checkups, I had my 15, 20 questions. And I like to always know and be prepared. And I love patients that are always asking the doctors questions, because that's the only way we're going to know what's going on. And I encourage everybody to just keep asking as many questions as you can, because it's so helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I would say ask all the questions, because there's no such thing as what people would say is a stupid question. Everybody is at different levels of education and exposure and just to pregnancy, labor, birth, all the things. There are some people that don't find out they're pregnant until they're 5 months pregnant, and they're like, oh my God, I've been having periods all this time. Like, what does that even mean? Like, everybody's body is so different. So I very much encourage all the questions.
Yes.
After your morning sickness was gone with Anna, did you have any other symptom replace that? Like, were you coasting through the rest of your pregnancy, or were there any complications?
I did not. I was going to school. I was going to college, me and my sister, in California. We were going to school Monday through Friday, and I was babysitting actually. My parents would keep Danny, and I was babysitting for a couple of hours every day, and then school in the afternoon, in the evening, and I felt good. I felt great. I was able to eat normal stuff. There wasn't something that it was like I wasn't able to keep down, and I was pretty healthy with Anna's pregnancy.
That's awesome. So by this time, it sounds like the pregnancy is way smoother with Anna than it was with Danny.
Yes.
And at what point in your pregnancy, or at what point did you realize that you were in labor with Anna? Was it different than with Danny, or was it similar?
No, it was different because Anna was to be born December 3rd. So it was a Friday, and I felt normal. I felt fine. And the doctor calls me Wednesday and says, well, she's due on the 3rd, and do you just want to induce on the 3rd? So she's born on the day that we were supposed to. Mind you, at this point, the doctor said that she was going to be a boy. So we're talking about your son, Samuel. That's going to be his. And oh well, if Sam is supposed to be born on Friday and it doesn't look like it, so do you want to schedule to be induced? And I first I was like, okay, sure, but then I thought about it and I was like, no, 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 no. He should come whenever he's ready to come, because I was feeling so normal, I was feeling so healthy, I was feeling good, and I didn't want to push him out if he wasn't ready. I wanted him to just choose whenever he was ready. It was going to happen. So at that point, I called back and I said, no, no, I just want him to take his time and to just decide when he wants to be born. That's just when he's going to be born. So that was Friday. And they told me, okay, well, if you wanna induce labor, just walk a lot. And they mentioned spicy foods, and I was like, okay, I would just laugh. And then Saturday night they had pupusas at church, and I put so much spice in the pupusa, and I was like, maybe this is true, maybe it helps. So I ate it. Funny thing was that was like at 9. Um, and then at about 6 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I'm like, whoa, whoa, what's going on? And I started feeling the pain that I felt with Daniel. I was like, wait, this. I know what this is like. I understand this pain. And I was like, I think this is gonna happen. So I think it was 5 o'clock, and then we went to the hospital. We got admitted at 6. And sure, they were like, yep, you're staying, you're not going anywhere. And again, at that point, it had been really fast, really fast. I think I was about 6 and a half, and 9:15 she was born.
Wow.
The labor pains were just escalated very quickly. 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. And then at the time I was like, maybe I want the epidural. And then because at first I was like, I don't want the epidural, I don't want nothing, I'll do it normal. And then they're like, oh, it's too late. And I was like, oh, okay. I just pushed through. So then a few pushes that I did, and then there she was crying. It was so fast with Anna, and then all of a sudden, it's not a boy, it's a girl. So it was shocking that they were saying, "No, she's coming," and I was like, "What? There, she's literally coming out." And I was expecting it to take again, like Danny, like 10 hours, but no, she was ready for the world on December 5th, and that's when she was born.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And what a crazy thing, because, technology and science, like in the day and age that Marce, Anna, was born, was still decent enough to be able to tell you the accurate,
Yeah.
gender of your baby. But to be fair, there is never anything that is 100%. Obviously, Anna is like living proof of that. But how was that for you? Like, what amount of shock did you have, and how did you come up with like her name, knowing that she was going to be Samuel, but she was no longer a boy? Like, how was that process?
Yeah. So first I was shocked that she was born because again, I was expecting like to be in the hospital the whole day and I was expected to be in pain like the whole day. And then I was like, whoa, she's here. I am holding her and it's a girl. So it was crazy emotions. I was crazy happy. And I was super, super happy that she was a girl. And I was like, yay, I'm not gonna have two boys. I'm gonna have a boy and a girl. And we could not think of her name that day. It was just such adrenaline, such a moment that we were just not even thinking about that we didn't have a name. And the next day is that they brought the papers in and they're like, well, you're gonna have to choose a name. And I was like, what? Why? I wasn't ready, I wasn't prepared. I saw so many names for boys and I had so many boys' names, but I didn't have a girl name. And then we were talking on the names and it was like, oh no, what about your name, Mirla? I was like, no, 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 I don't want my daughter to have my name. I don't like Mirla. and, and then it was like, okay. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, what about Marcella? It's your mom's name and she will love it. We'll get some good points with mama. And then I was like, but that's my sister's name because my sister Lauren, whenever she wanted her girl, she was gonna name her Marcella. And I was like, I can't take the name from her. And I was like, or can I? So and then it was like, okay, we'll play with Marcella. And then it was like, what about Anna? Because my niece and nephew call me Anna for Joanna. And I was like, oh, okay. That we cut she'll still have part of my name that would say Anna. And it's not Mirla, but it's still Joanna. So it's still the Anna. So that's how she came to be Anna Marcella.
Mm,
And there
I
was no
love that.
clothes. There was no clothes too. He had to run out and get some a little dress. Came back with a little tiny dress and little tiny shoes, so we could dress her up to go home the day after.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
I love that whole story about how the name came about. I think that is awesome. I think that the process of that, of finding people close to you to come up with the name, is even better
Yeah.
because it's not just like looking up a random name online, scrolling and like stopping with your finger like a spin
Right.
wheel, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
There's meaning behind it. So she's
Yeah.
kind of like a junior, but not, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted that.
I imagine that back at home, you had all boy stuff. So
Yes.
did you and your family go on a shopping spree?
Well, I the first few weeks, she was blue. She wore blue stuff. So wherever we go to the store, it's like, oh, you're a little boy. And then I try to put her like a little pin, so she looked like a little girl. But I was like, no, it's a girl. But then after the couple of weeks, then I was able to go to the store, and I was like, it's time. She cannot be wearing all blue clothes, and people are still gonna say it's a boy. But yeah, so we went and bought little girl stuff.
I think that's so cool. And that's also everybody else's problem of just assuming that she is a boy because she's wearing blue. Like it
Yes.
happened with Katana too. Like Katana was in a lot of gender neutral, what people would say gender neutral colors
Yeah.
for a long time.
Hmm.
And she wears a lot of her brother's hand me downs. So they assume that she's a boy. And I'm just like, man, if baby's not wearing pink, then everybody's a boy, you know?
That's just what society has decided right now. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that story. Oh, I forgot to ask. I wanted to ask you, when you were in labor with Anna, was there support people in your room then as well, or not as much this time?
At that point, not as much because it was in the morning. It was Sunday morning. My sisters were in Washington. I was in California. My parents. We really quick on our way to the hospital dropped off Danny, and we're like, "It's happening! It's happening! Here's Danny." So we left Danny in the morning, and then in the room it was just my husband at that time, and the doctor that was actually doing my care wasn't there, so I got replacement doctor and the nurse. and the medical assistant. I definitely liked Danny's experience more because I had 6 midwives that would rotate throughout the 40 weeks, and I got to know them all. So in that room,
Mm.
I saw a lot of familiar faces. With Anna, I didn't. It was just the hospital had certain doctors and they didn't have midwives. But I mean, at that point, you just need help. So it is nice to have familiar faces, but at the end of the day, let's just get this done.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I think, and from the outside, it sounds like it's better to have not known people as much during Anna's birth because it was quicker than Danny's birth. So you kind of like didn't have to deal with them as much as
That's,
if it was as long
yeah.
as Danny's.
Yeah. It's very, very true. Very, very true.
Maybe your body was like, I don't recognize none of these faces. Let's hurry this up.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool. How was your breastfeeding experience with Anna?
Oh, with Anna, again, my body was so ready for everything at that point. And again, I started with the liquids and the soups and everything. I had a lot of supply. And Anna was a hungry baby.
Mm.
She would want to feed 30 minutes and sleep for 3.5 hours and feed again. And she was just so hungry when she'd wake up that she made 2 more of the little holes that I didn't have in my nipples. And then
Ooh.
as soon as she'd go to sleep, and then 3 hours, and I would put little ointments or warm cloth towels to help because you'd bleed, and then you kind of, it hurt so much, and I was like, oh my god, and I was just in so much pain, just trying to relax how swollen I got. And then, and after a couple of hours, it was like, okay, the skin is maybe healing, but then she'd wake up again. And as soon as she'd woke up and she wanted to feed, I there were some times I cried. And I was like, no, no, please, no. Because it was just gonna do it all over again. And then when she would feed, it just hurt so much. And it was just like my skin breaking all over again. But after a couple of days, my skin just got used to it, and it didn't heal too close again. So it was just there. And again, she was such a hungry baby that she slept very good, fed very good. Everything was really healthy with her. So it was worth it.
Of course, all the pain we go through as parents is worth it in the end, right?
Yeah, of course.
I think that's so amazing. And I love being able to actually hear the birth stories of my younger siblings and to hear what was going through your head and how you were feeling throughout your pregnancy. Because, as you know, birth is my jam. And I have
Mhm.
never had the opportunity to sit down with you and talk with you about these things. So I
Yeah.
think that it's super fun and really great.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a couple of questions. When we all had our babies, myself and my sisters, when we had our babies, you made this special drink. Did you consume that special drink as well with these babies of
Of
yours?
course. My mom gave me the whole pot for like 5, 6 days. And then when I finished that one, there was another one and another one. So, and Marcia was just loving it because she was just hungry all the time. And I was really, really happy. And that's why I believe in the drink a lot, because my milk got to be very thick, like actual 2% milk, 1% milk. Or and I would see the milk, and I was like, wow, this is really good. It's very, very healthy. So I'm all for doing everything I can to for my babies, of course, even if it's painful or if I'm so full and I still have to eat, I do it for them.
Yeah, yeah, and it's actually pretty tasty. And I'm not sure if this is true, but I imagine that the recipe for this drink may have slightly adjusted over the years to just help encourage that lactation and production.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's 13 cereals in one box, and then we do half of that in one gallon. But then we put chocolate, one chocolate bar to make it tasty. Like you said, we made it better throughout the years. And then we put a little, this other mix that we buy. So we kind of like mix three things in what it was, but it's actually better. It has different cereals and it's very, very, very healthy.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Sometimes I just want to drink it and I don't need more milk, but
Right.
yeah. So as we round up this interview, I'd love to ask you just a few questions. Is there any advice that you would give to any pregnant people out there?
Yeah. Back in my day, there wasn't a lot of educational stuff or resources as we have now. Now everything is it's like everywhere. It's in our phone. It's our friends. It's our family. It's conversations in the TV. It's shows. Um, just get as much as information as you can.
What is one word that you would use to round off both of your experiences of pregnancy and birth?
The one word I was thinking, it's a miracle. Miracle just says it all because it's amazing, it's crazy, it's our minds can wrap our minds around on what just happened and how and what, and it's just such a miracle that we women get to experience, and we get to go through the labor, the pregnancy, the labor, and then having our little one in our hands. It's a miracle.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it is very much a miracle. So thank you so much, Mirla. I really do appreciate you sharing your stories on the podcast with me and for all the listeners. I am super excited for my siblings to hear it as well.
Yes. Thank you. Love you.
Yeah, love you too.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm super excited to say that I had a blast interviewing Mirla. Both of us were a little bit off that day, but I still think that the recording turned out fantastic. Mirla had some really intense allergies going on, and I was having a lot of technical difficulties, but we made it work. And so I'm super excited. So thank you, Mirla, for being able to share your stories with me and the audience on the podcast. And I really hope that Danny and Anna really enjoy their stories and can look back and listen to this knowing that you worked so hard to bring them here. Next week, we're actually going to have a surprise guest because I don't know who it's going to be yet. I will be recording interviews with 3 different individuals this upcoming Sunday, and I will do my best as a host to choose the next story that I feel fits the flow of the show. So tune in next week for the surprise guest. So thank you so much for listening to this episode today. Please don't hesitate to share this episode with your family and your friends. And I just launched my Patreon account, so go ahead over to patreon.com/birthasweknowit, and you will be able to see what my tier of offering is. Right now, my tier of offering is a basic offering where if you become a patron, then you will get a shout out at the beginning of each episode, and you will also just be supporting my passion for this work, as well as supporting the podcast to be able to continue to produce amazing stories to share with the community. Also, don't hesitate to leave a review for the podcast because that brings it up for others and they could see it and listen to it as well. And if I start getting enough reviews, maybe I'll start doing a review of the week. So just keep putting those reviews on, bring the podcast up to people's attention, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye.